Bonjour and hello Wranglers, welcome to the hatchery. My name is King Gae and I'll be your guide as we go over the different species of voidlings that you'll encounter in Voidling Bound. Our next voidling is extremely unique. They are a ferocious symbiotic creature that is the definition of brutality. Meet Ur-Sek, or simply Ur-Sek. Ur-Sek is actually not one, but technically two voidlings. According to our research, about 100,000 years ago on the planet Solemn, Sek, a symbiotic parasite, attached itself to a ground-dwelling creature named Ur. While gaining protection from its predators, Sek helped Ur hunt its prey. Thousands of years later, these creatures now exist in a permanent symbiosis and are forever known as Ur-Sek. Research into this relationship helped lead to the technology that Wranglers now use to bind with their voidlings. If you decide to bind with Ur-Sek, you will quickly find out why this partnership created a voidling that is a ferocious apex predator. Ur-Sek is not like any of the previous voidlings that we have shown and are extremely unique. Ur-Sek has two forms, where one voidling has more control over the other. So we will start with their ultimate ability, Ur-Sek Swap. When this is activated, Ur-Sek jumps and smashes the ground, dealing AoE damage, stunning enemies, or releasing a swarm of locusts, while also switching forms. Now this is the only way to shift between the two voidlings, so having a deep understanding of what each form can do is important. Ur's form is observed as being a strong, lumbering war beast with slower but devastating attacks. Sek is much faster, overwhelming enemies in exchange for less defensive measures. The ultimate's cooldown is generally lower compared to other voidlings, but still requires careful planning. Now we get to the basic abilities. Ur-Sek are melee-focused voidlings with a secondary focus on ranged attacks, while in Ur's form, the primary attack is called Bash, which are big, heavy strikes that are slow and sweeping, while also finishing with a large dash. However, Sek uses Slash as its primary ability, which is much faster and ends with a powerful blow. The secondary ability in Ur's form is Bile Up. This sends a line of acidic puddles that deals damage and continues to deal damage to anyone standing in it. Sek uses an ability called Swarm Out, which locks into targets and launches hivelings that deal damage on impact. Additionally, Ur has the Roar ability. All enemies caught in it receive damage reduction, making them deal less damage. Sek also can Screech, which actually reduces the armor of nearby enemies, making them take more damage from Ur-Sek. The final ability, besides the ultimate, is the only shared ability between Ur-Sek, and that's Blind Charge. When activated, Ur-Sek begins to rush down the field with a defensive barrier that stops projectiles from enemies. Ur-Sek is nothing short of a creature of absolute carnage, and keeping control of one can be quite difficult. But your reward is a war beast that can dismantle any enemy that stands in your way. If you choose to bind and become a third member of this voidling crew, you will need to know that the Ur-Sek has two trees of evolution, organic and plasma. Both of these trees contain upgrades that vary from swamp monsters, night terrors, large insects, and outright eldritch cosmic horrors. Over in the organic side, you can go with the mutualistic or symbiotic routes. If you choose the mutualistic, one of the final evolutions you can get is the lurking Ur-Sek. When executing an enemy, they spawn a swamp pool. When standing in it, the Ur-Sek goes invisible and gains movement speed. If you take out large groups of enemies, it allows you to be able to hop from pool to pool in a nightmarish fashion. Speaking of nightmares, the Dream Eater line grants the ability to put enemies to sleep. Then, when you walk near them, Ur-Sek's sheer presence deals damage to them over time, while also healing the Ur-Sek. If you choose the symbiotic route, you can get access to the Syrup Ur-Sek. This line grants Ur-Sek the ability to slow enemies, but also the more the enemy is slowed, the more damage that the Ur-Sek can actually deal to them. Additionally, you could get access to the Hive Ur-Sek, where passively hivelings spawn from the Ur-Sek that randomly seeks, damages, and poison enemies around it. Over on the plasma side, you have access to the dependent and exploitative Ur-Sek lines. If you choose a dependent line, it allows the Ur-Sek to be able to block attacks while it's winding up bash. This also gives you access to the spiked Ur-Sek ability. When the Ur-Sek blocks, it releases a small explosion that stuns nearby enemies. You also can get access to the infestation Ur-Sek. Whenever you use Ur's Roar or Screech with Sek, 3 swarms of leeches seek and attack enemies, replenishing your health. If you go with the exploitative route, one of the final evolutions you can choose is the bursting Ur-Sek. After you land a hit, Ur-Sek charges a wave of stingers that unleashes when fully charged. The attack pierces enemies and applies disintegration. Or you could go with the Vortex Ur-Sek, where purple vortex follows you and pulls enemies into you, while also periodically applying disintegration. There are 31 different forms of the Ur-Sek, all more fearsome than the last. However, reports have shown that there is a rare mutation of the Ur-Sek that is reported to be a cyber mutation. If you could find more data on this particular mutation, it may help us stop the lesion and its forces. When it comes to upgrading the Ur-Sek, you will find that because of it having 2 forms, the upgrade tree is also the biggest and most expensive. My suggestion would be to figure out which attacks or which form you prefer and focus on upgrading those first. However, there are a few key upgrades that you may want to focus on as early as possible. Sek can upgrade to having a deafening screech, as it will now also apply a stun to surrounding enemies for a short period of time. Sek can also get Shattering Hivelings, where it applies armor reduction on impact, which is fantastic to open up with when attacking larger enemies. Ur's Charged Tackle gives Ur the ability to apply a stun when you charge with the primary attack. Also, Ur's Serrated Claws makes enemies bleed, which pairs beautifully with Ur's Blood Hunger, which gives health regain to Ur-Sek when damaging enemies who are bleeding. Ur-Sek is a war machine and should be treated as such, but is prone to ranged aerial attacks due to not having a consistent ranged attack like many of the other previous Voidlings. Knowing when to switch forms is key. Ur is built to take less damage and outright smash the face of enemies. Sek is built to turn them into minced meat. Start each fight with Ur, wrecking, stunning, and hitting enemies. When your ultimate gauge is filled, determine which form could be best in that moment. Surrounded by small enemies, or the sky getting cluttered, switch to Sek, who can slice through them quite quickly, while also having the most reliable way to take out aerial enemies. If the fight starts to get heated once more, or you start losing your health, switch back to Ur, tank the damage, and recover your health. Additionally, the Ur-Sek has all the dexterity and acrobatic skill of a rock. Platforming through levels may be quite the task, and dodging enemy attacks can also be a problem. However, use Ur-Sek's shared blind charge ability to avoid and block major attacks from larger enemies. Now, you're going to be taking some big hits as Ur-Sek, but luckily Ur can handle a lot of punishment, and also has access to plenty of health replenishing traits through both mutation and upgrade paths. Ur-Sek is truly a beast built for battle. Diving headfirst into danger is where this Voidling thrives. That's all for today's video. While this apex predator makes its presence known, our next Voidling likes to camouflage itself in weight, only striking when the opportunity is right. See you all next time.